All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of season 2 of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't remember what episode this is because we just continue to record, continue to bring on cool guests from all across the world. It's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live from USA. Coach Jay can't be with us tonight just because he's got some few things going on, and that time difference is really messing with us. But he's retired, I'm retired. We're trying to figure out what we're doing in life, and here we are. We got another cool guest with us tonight. We got Coach Ryan out of the University of Tennessee, 2022 NSCA Assistant College Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year, National Weightlifter, Chicago born and raised, Chi-Town stand up, Assistant Director of Olympic Sports Performance of University of Tennessee. Coach, welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love these podcasts, so I'm excited to explore whatever rabbit holes we're going to go down today. So
yeah, you know, in the strength and conditioning world, we love going down rabbit holes because that's just what we do. You know, but first, before we get there, what got you into this field? What made you want to go into strength and conditioning?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. I get to tell a story about my past, and it's a lot of fun for me. So if you're not aware, I do have a background in gymnastics before weightlifting. So I have been a gymnast since I was about 5 or so. Did it all through college, so about 17 years under my belt. And being athletic was always just a part of me growing up. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I've got 2 older brothers that were super athletic, and that's who I looked up to as a youngster. They're roughly about 10 and 8.5 years older than I am. So I had great role models as far as, you know, they wanted to play football, basketball, you know, baseball, lift weights, do all the things. And I wanted to be involved in all of it as much as I could. And so I was like the tag along little sister that would go pretend to bench press with them, even though I couldn't lift what they were doing. But anyways, and so I think my brothers really set me on the path of athletics. And there's one memory that sticks out to me in my head with my oldest brother. He pulled out this, we had an old time weightlifting set in our house, and he put it on our patio one day, and he took the barbell and he was messing around with it. And he goes, "Look what I can do." And I don't know if he snatched, I don't know if he clean and jerked, but he did something where it went from the ground to over his head. And I was 5 or 6 years old. And I was like, that is so cool. And ever since then, I've always been yeah, I think I want to be part of athletics. And so did the whole gymnastics thing growing up, pole vaulted a little bit, all of that great stuff. And by the time I went to college, I was like, oh, okay, I want to be part of the athletic world. How do I do that? And I thought athletic training was the route. I got to college, did my first semester athletic training, taping all the ankles and doing the things. And I was like, this is not for me. What else is out there? And so I had a strength and conditioning coach at my undergrad. And I was like, wait, this is a profession? I was like, I can do what you're doing. And so he really helped kind of, I guess, navigate that end piece for me and just put everything together that strength and conditioning was an area that I could go down and explore and be part of it, of athletics, but do it in a way of performance instead of maybe the prehab rehab route. So I think that's kind of where we got to where we are today.
Okay. I mean, that's a long navigation, but what was it like, to kind of navigate? Because you said you were doing taping people's ankles, right? That's not kind of the field you want to be in. You see a strength and conditioning coach that you're kind of like, hey, wait, this is a profession. How was it to navigate to kind of get there? And now you're at a premier university, right? You're at the University of Tennessee. I mean, we all know what kind of facilities they have there. At least us in America know what you guys have, but some of my European listeners don't understand that that's top of the top, right? Everything you got there is top notch. So how was it to kind of get from where you were at taping ankles to where you are now?
Yeah, I think the University of Tennessee wasn't even in my eyesight that long ago because I had really no idea or perspective on collegiate athletics. I was a D3 athlete, and so I didn't understand the world of Division I athletics and what Power 5 and I guess maybe now Power 4 conference looked like.
SEC.
You're right.
It's right below the NFL, pretty much.
Right. And literally that's what they were talking about in our past football game. These are NFL games. But I didn't understand the level of which you could go in this field and just how elite things could be. And so when I started on this path, I used to tell my Division III strength and conditioning coach that I was going to take his job because I thought that was the top of what I could do. And so just randomly on a whim, someone mentioned to me, have you looked at the University of Kentucky? And I was like, nope. I was like, why would that be on my radar? I'm from Chicago. Yeah. I did my undergrad at Wisconsin Oshkosh. Like, why would I look at a school like Kentucky? And so, a previous student from Oshkosh went to Kentucky. And so I just emailed them randomly. I showed up there one day in an orange shirt, which if it was Tennessee, that would be okay. But Kentucky is blue and it was not. And that was like
definitely not okay.
That I had. But I literally dove into Division I Power 5 from the start of being an intern. And from that moment, I realized, okay, things are different. And this is a different level of athlete. This is a different level of resource. This is totally different than what I was exposed to. And I loved it. So from that point on, I was very intentional about the jobs that I took and where I wanted to be because I knew the type of athlete that I wanted to work with. And so I think my ignorance probably helped me a ton with getting to where I am because I was never nervous to contact somebody because I just didn't know better. And so, putting together an email to Kentucky to start my coaching career was just like, yeah, I'll do that. Whereas maybe someone that had an idea would be more scared to do something like that. But I just jumped in with both feet and here we are.
I mean, that's kind of awesome though. You know what I mean? Because then you're not having that fear, that doubt, like, hey, if I do send this email, I might not get a response or anything like that. You had no clue, right? Like,
I had not a clue. And to even be more transparent, like emailed the head of their football department. I had not an idea. So I was just a lost soul trying to like find my way. And somehow we've been able to, navigate a path.
And here you are, right? And I saw a podcast that you were on, as you talked a little bit about you make all your interns work out.
Yes.
Why is that important to you? Because you're talking about you navigated a path now, right? You're at probably a premier place. A lot of people come in and they're not like you, right? They're afraid to send that email. But now you're in a position to where you're kind of leading the way and kind of showing interns how to get to the position that you're in. What is it? Why is it so important to you that your interns also do work out while they work underneath you?
I think one of the things that I think is super important is if you're going to be a coach, then you should lead by example. That's something that has been instilled in me from a very young age. Like I said, athletics has always been a part of what I've done ever since I was really little. And so I just think it's super important that if you're going to be someone leading people, then you should have already gone down that path yourself. The other thing is that a lot of times people are not going to trust you or they don't want to follow where you're going if you haven't already been there yourself. And so I think training as a coach is super, super important. Also, I'm super competitive and I always want to be forever stronger than all of my athletes. And so that's a major reason why I continue to train. But for my interns, I want that to be instilled in them too. But when you're a really, really young coach, the opportunity to train yourself gives you the ability to learn a lot. And so you can understand how to program. You can understand how you feel after this type of session. You can understand if these movements feel good together or like this makes no sense. You can play around with the technology and the tools and all of the things. And there's so many resources here. Use them, especially when you're young, because it gives you such a leg up, especially with the field being so technology based moving forward. If we have it here, I want our interns to leave here knowing every single thing that we have.
I mean, especially you like you said, you're at the top level, right? You had no clue what was available to you coming from the D3 level, right? So a lot of your interns that don't take advantage of having what you guys have now, they don't even understand that you might leave here and you might go down to the D3 level. You might go to D2. You might go anywhere you might go, might not have what you guys have right now.
Absolutely.
Right? So you need to be able to speak on it to an athletic director why it would be important to have. And if you do go to a place that does have it, you already know how to use it. So I think that's super awesome that you're telling your interns, to get to learn these things. But how hard is it for them to buy into what you're saying and actually believe in what you're preaching to them? Because I think that's a hard part for a lot of those coaches that get in these leadership roles on like how do we lead by example, but how do we also practice what we preach and get it to other people to understand.
I think part of that is because I continue to train myself. And so I'm the one telling them. And again, I think it kind of goes to the same thing with your athletes is they're not going to take the lead from you if you're not, practicing what you're preaching basically. And so I think the fact that I still maintain a competitive training schedule and still compete is super, super important for my words to kind of have weight with them. The other thing that I think is really great about here is that the staff here also trains as well. And so, whether you are someone that Olympic lifts, whether you're someone that is into powerlifting, whether you want to try out all of our Kaiser machines or do some BFR, like anything, there's probably a coach on staff that's doing it at some point in time throughout the day. And so there's a lot of opportunity for our interns to be involved. The other thing that I will say is that I make them train. And so it's part of their intern policy manual that they sign that if they don't train and they don't turn in training logs to me, then I can fire them. No, they have to. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. I know you talked a little bit about you're still competing. Why? What are you still competing at? And like, why are you competing? And what got you into competing? Because I saw a little bit on Instagram. You're throwing up some weight.
Yeah. Well, it ebbs and flows. There's definitely been some high highs and some low lows. My weightlifting career has spanned, this will be year 12 that I've been on the national stage. So it's a long time of competing, almost a long time of just like bashing your head against a wall of doing the same thing over and over and over, because I'm sure people know weightlifters, like they have a little bit of, I don't know, this crazy competitiveness in them. But what started me on Olympic lifting, going back to my time at Kentucky, is I interned at Kentucky, and that was totally great. But I knew that that was a turning point in my career. So I could either go back home and wait for a personal training job and, do whatever. And nothing is wrong with that at all. It's just that's not what I wanted to do. After my exposure at Kentucky, I knew that the collegiate setting was really for me. And they had a grad assistant position that was going to be open. And they told me all about the position. And they said, we have one stipulation. Whoever we consider for this job, we want them to compete in Olympic weightlifting. Would you be open to it? And I said, if that gets me the job, I will do it. And so we were running CrossFit and doing these like general population classes that I was part of, and I would do the workouts. And there was a workout where you had to clean, every minute on the minute for 10 minutes and increase your weight. And there was a day where, I'm not very big in stature. When I compete as of late, I've been 108 pounds. Yeah, so I'm tiny, and my training weight, I'm usually around 116 to 120, so I'm not very big. And I remember in this CrossFit workout, I cleaned 150, and I was like, maybe I can do this Olympic lifting thing. And actually, after they told me about it, I didn't get the grad assistant position. It was given to someone else. But I made the move to Lexington because I knew that I wanted to coach. And so I interned. I took on 2 other jobs. I did that for an entire year, and I learned to really coach on the floor and be an asset to the staff. And that following year, I got the grad assistant position, and we started the technical side of Olympic lifting. And I did my first meet, and I think it was my first or second, local meet. I ended up qualifying for a national level competition. And ever since then, I guess that's where we've been. There's been times, like I said, ebbs and flows. I've had some really high highs where I'm, winning medals and everything is great. And I've had some times where dang it, I can't put the weight in the right spot overhead and we bomb out. And so you just got to take the good with the bad. And spanning 12 years is a long time to be in one sport.
Yeah, 12 years is a very long time to be doing weightlifting. But you're talking about like climbing the ladder, right? Like you were an intern, trying to get the GA spot, right? Don't get it, become an intern, have 2 jobs, and you get the GA spot, then you continue to climb ladder. So the point where you become the NSCA Assistant College Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year.
Maybe that was a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah. Tell me how you got there, and what is the award even like? How did the award come about, and what is the award all about? Tell me more about it.
Yeah. And so, as I mentioned before, I was super intentional with the jobs that I took and where I wanted my path to go. And so while I was at Kentucky, I believe it was my last semester that I was there, my boss, the director at the time, said, I want you to write down your career goals. Where do you want to go? Where do you see your path? And so I wrote down 10 goals that I had of basically climbing ladders, certifications that I wanted to get, sports I wanted to work with, places that I saw myself going, everything from a career standpoint. And with that being said, one of the things that I mentioned was that I wanted to be very well-rounded as a strength and conditioning professional, because all of my experience up to that point was Olympic sports, Kentucky, Division I, Power Five. And that's great. But I thought it was important and valuable to kind of expand a little bit. And so actually my next step after being done with my grad assistant position, I took a volunteer spot and I went and worked Kentucky football. And I was a volunteer, back to not getting paid. But the point was that I wanted to have experience with football, with that type of athlete. And so I could put it on my resume so no one could ever deny me a job for not. After that, I wanted to go to the mid-major level because I wanted to know what it's like to not have certain resources, to not be at a certain talent level, to be spread out among 4 to 5 sports, and what's the involvement look like. And so I got my job at VCU, which was a blessing because I made amazing connections there, got to work with teams I had never seen before, and I got the experience of a mid-major. So again, I checked a box and I was like, now no one can never say that I didn't do that. After that, I knew that I've always wanted to be back to Power Five. The position at Clemson came open. It ended up being really great. That's where I learned a ton about technology. I think that was a saving grace from that end of it. I got to kind of narrow my focus with my sports. I only had 2 sports, so I could really dive in to learn a lot about soccer and softball and what those athletes need. And I took over the internship program, and I had it at VCU as well. But I continued to check boxes for my career so that if anything ever came open, no one could say you're not qualified enough. So throughout this time, I was getting, my certifications and all of that. And then the NSCA position, or I guess award, came up while I was at Clemson. So I had been trying to make a push to be a presenter, be on the national stage, be at local things, just be more involved in the organizations that push strength and conditioning, because I think strength and conditioning coaches are more than people that count reps or manage weights or anything like that. There's a lot of substance to us and the type of people that it takes to be successful. I think you have to be an extremely dynamic personality. And so I wanted to showcase that for us and for being a female in the field as well. And so I really tried to put myself out there and network. And I think that's what did it. Someone nominated me and I found out much, much later who it was because I had no idea. They never tell you. Someone nominated me. And so I had to put together basically a proposal of why I was a good candidate for this award. And after that, I found out that there was a group of very highly respected strength coaches that all vote, and they all voted my way based on my resume, all of the stuff that I put together. And that was a really awesome moment for me because, I found out the coaches that were voting for me to win this award were coaches that I respected and looked up to. And the fact that they thought I was, I guess, valuable enough and worthy of it really meant a lot to me. And so that award came in 2022. And it's been great ever since because I've had a great connection with the NSCA and it's opened a lot of doors as far as presenting and being on podcasts and just really getting the word out about the field.
Awesome. I mean,
yeah.
I don't even know what to say about that. Like, look at you, like climbing the ladder, getting respect from like head coaches or head strength and conditioning coaches that you looked up to. Why though such a push for you to kind of continue to push for strength and conditioning coaches to say that we're not just people that count reps, count numbers, but also from the female perspective? I hate asking the question of, what is it like to be a female in this male-dominated industry? Because you're a coach, right? You've learned all the stuff that it takes to become good in this field. You know what I mean? Like, why are you guys put in a box just because you're a female? It doesn't mean that you guys can't do what the males do. So I just want to know, like, why such a push for you? Like, what makes you want to bring strength and conditioning coaches up so much?
Yeah. I think a lot of times perception is reality to everyone else that's around us. And people that are not in our field really tend to think that we're these meatheads or, we can count to 10 and that's about our use and our value. And, we're the disciplinarians and we're the mental, toughness coaches and we're these things. And really at the end of the day, like, it's very likely that we have the most education out of anyone on staff. It's very likely that we are working with the most diverse amount of athletes because you get exposure to more than one sport. You get exposure to more than one type of athlete. And you as a strength and conditioning professional don't really have restriction on the interactions that you can have with your athletes, and sport coaches do. And so a lot of times strength and conditioning coaches are almost the bridge between their athletes and the sport coaches because we have so much information. We're around the athletes so much. We can start to see when something is a little off. There's a red flag. Athletes confide in us. Like, we are a very important pillar in performance. And so for me, I think it's important to spotlight the fact that these individuals that you have on staff are worthy of a lot of things and can help in so many areas. And so that's why I like to kind of push, like, hey, we're educated. These are all of the other things that we have. And I tend to use my area of strength and conditioning, as a vehicle for other things. Like, I want my athletes to leave here and be productive in their jobs moving forward. Some of them are going to be professional, and that's an amazing thing. And I'm happy to have a hand in their success. But a lot of them are going to go into the workforce, and like, you need to be accountable, and you need to be punctual, and you need to, be respectful and professional, and all of these things that me as a strength and conditioning coach can help kind of navigate that for a young person. So I think that that's why it's so important for people to see us as very valuable members of staff. The bit about being a female is very interesting because, again, with strength and conditioning, counting my years of interning, I've probably been in this field about 13 years altogether, and I've seen it evolve. And so every single conference that I've gone to has gone from like your typical 5 women that show up and all the rest are men, and I happen to be one of the 5, right? To, it's evolved into, we have an entire like group me for women that are in the field, and it's probably upwards of 250 people across the nation. And yeah, so it's really, really grown for women. And I think, to your point, we don't have to differentiate that it's male or a female coach. We're all coaches. I think just what women bring to the table can be different, because something that's unique about my position is that I work with only female athletes. And so my connection to the female athletes is going to be so different than if they had a male coach. They talk to me about things that are very personal to them, things that are going on with their bodies, things that are going on in their personal lives, things that they just have a level of comfortability with me that I can help give insight then to their coaches. So I think that that's super important, but just growing the field and being diverse is something that I love. I think having a lot of the same doesn't help us get better. We need people that can fill all areas. And if I'm not great at something, like, I want someone that is great at it to balance us out. But the last thing I want to say about, the push for women is that I think a lot of times you hear about diversity, diversity, diversity. Oh, who's your female on staff? The token female. And it's like, you know what? If me being a female is getting me my job, fine, I'll check the box, but you better believe I'm going to bring some substance. I'm going to know my stuff, and I'm going to be valuable no matter if I'm the female or not. And so I think that that's super important for women in this field, to just be educated, bring something to the table. Don't just check the box because that's what you're doing. Like, you should be a coach of substance.
Yeah, you should. But who are you continuing to learn from?
Goodness. So this is very interesting. I don't know if you know about this, but I have started an MBA program here at Tennessee.
Okay.
So this is my 3rd semester. So it's interesting because I am so interested in things unrelated to strength and conditioning to help me be a better strength and conditioning coach. And so I don't dive into, the X's and O's of programming, or I'm on the latest trend of how to train an athlete. Like, do I understand training programs? Yeah, absolutely. I write them. I read about them. That's great. I like to learn about leadership qualities, communication skills, psychology, nutrition. And so I guess, long story short, in the big grand scheme of things, I'm currently learning business. And that's who I'm learning from, is the University of Tennessee.
What are you going to do with that business? Like, what are you like learning this, getting this degree or getting this master's in this? What are you like? How's that going to help you become a better coach, and how are you going to translate that over to your athletes? Because I can already tell you're going to use this for something to kind of talk to your athletes about for another piece in there, right? So like, how are you going to use this?
Yeah, so I have noticed actually that there's a lot of crossover and similarities between business and strength and conditioning. The longer that I've been in the field of athletics, I think people that are in it, realize, and maybe people don't agree, but this is an entertainment business. And there's a lot that goes on upstairs in the admin offices. For me, I'm the only person that's going to create opportunity for myself. And a lot of my education is athletic performance based. And that's helped me be really successful as a strength and conditioning coach. Looking forward to my career, if I'm going to be 100% transparent, this is not something that I want to continue to do at this level, 30 years from now. I've had and continue to have a really great coaching career, but if I'm ever going to take a step in a different direction, I need to have the tools to do so. So for me, I think it's a bit more selfish in my business pursuits, but it's because I'm just trying to create a lot of opportunity. And I think, again, it's also important for my athletes to see that they have a very strong coach that's doing things outside of the norm and, pursuing other things potentially for myself.
I wouldn't say it's selfish though. I mean, it's kind of selfless because you're showing your athletes that you can do multiple things at one time, and that there's a lot of people that go into being an athlete that's just, hey, it's just plan A, right? Plan A is plan A. There is no plan B, right? You're actually showing that there can be a plan B while you're still doing plan A, right? And have a backup in your pocket. So I think it's actually not that selfish as you might think it is. Now,
Yeah.
this is one question I've got for you from one of our former guests, right? Since being in the field, what has been one of your bigger shifts in perspective?
Wow. For me personally, there has been such a change in how athletes are handled, how interns are handled. And so that's been tough because from an intern perspective side, like I said, I worked 3 jobs. I didn't get paid to intern. I was there at 5 in the morning until 7 at night. Weekends, all of this stuff. I would cut vacations home with my family short to be back because someone needed coverage. Like there was a lot of sacrifice, and that's not cutting it anymore for interns. So I think the sacrifice that I made in order to make things better for our interns now has changed because I'm very mindful of I don't want you coming in 3 days in a row early. So let's scoot you down to you can come in at 9 today. I try to be very mindful of their sleep, and I'm like, how are you doing with school? And how are you balancing another job? But no one checked in on that for me. So I think being mindful of just them as a whole person has changed. Same thing with athletes. I just find with myself, the standard that I hold myself to is different than maybe what we can hold athletes to. And I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean I'm very, very hard on myself. But if an athlete did something, I may not be as hard on them as I would be on myself if I had done the same thing. And so I just think you have to treat them slightly different. I don't know if that's the right answer, but
I mean, it's your perspective,
there's a change.
I think there is though definitely a change. I mean, us as parents, as coaches, we kind of say that this generation is a little bit different, but that's a whole different topic that we could always get into. What's something you'd want us to ask our next guest?
And I have no idea who the next guest is.
No idea at all.
Goodness, that's a tough question. Can I think on that? Gosh, you got me right on the spot.
It could be anything you want to ask.
Dang, this is tough. Can we edit this long pause out? My God.
Don't worry, AI does all that stuff. They edit out the long pause and make it look great and everything.
I guess my biggest question to the next guest would be, what are your tools and tactics to set some boundaries and potentially avoid burnout in a field that has such a high rate? How do you handle your self-care and your balance outside of your job?
Love it. And what would you say?
For me personally?
Yeah.
I put strict boundaries on things. And so I never take my work home with me. I leave it here. I will not answer messages from athletes or coaches past a certain time. For myself, as far as burnout, I think, training with Olympic lifting, that I don't train here at our facility at Tennessee. I go to a different facility and I train, even though I could literally step up right outside my door and do it. I might go somewhere else because I want to turn off, and that's my time. So I don't really answer my phone when I'm gone, and I get to be around different people that aren't going to ask me 20 questions about what the next day entails. So that's kind of my time.
I love it, Coach. And that is it for the day. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know how that college schedule gets. But thank you so much for coming on here and dropping a lot of knowledge and also just teaching people what you have been through and how to navigate. And even though we didn't talk much about just the scientific side of coaching, we learned a lot today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And that's what makes the best podcast. So I appreciate your time.
Of course. And we're out of here.